Wild West stories you never heard. What secret rules did outlaws follow to eat, sleep, and stay one step ahead without firing a shot? From chuckwagon cooks hiding army bacon to bushwhackers with ledgers, gun runners in San Simon, and stage robbers who use smoke instead of bullets, these true-to-play stories show how daily grit beat loud legend. Later in this video, you'll hear the one trick that saved more lives than any fast draw. Which quiet habit kept him free the longest, and why did it finally fail? What does a trail cook do when the army's bacon goes missing on the Chisholm Trail, and how does he keep 100 hungry cowboys from finding out? The year is 1868. The dust line runs from the Red River up through Indian Territory to Abilene, Kansas. Our cook, most hands just call him Cookie, drives a chuckwagon a mile ahead of the herd. He's the camp clock and the camp confessor. He also happened to be the quietest thief between the Brazos and the Smoky Hill. Stick around to discover the trick that let him steal pork under every nose and never lose a wink of sleep. A normal day starts in the dark. Cookie kicks the fire with mesquite coals he banked under ash the night before. He grinds Arbuckle coffee, taps the water barrel, and stirs the sourdough mother, riding in a crock wrapped in wet burlap. By the time the wrangler gathers a remuda, biscuits are browning in a Dutch oven, and beans are burbling. He sets out salt, molasses, onions, and a skillet swimming with bacon grease. The boys ride in, hats white with dust, and eat like men sentenced to it. A good cook keeps them moving. A smart cook keeps his mouth shut. Now the army bacon. Technically, it isn't the army's anymore. It came loose from a quartermaster lot outside Fort Arbuckle, traded down a chain of not very honest hands. Cookie bought it for cash he shouldn't have. Why risk it? Because bacon is more than meat out here. It's flavor, energy, and a fence against complaints. With bacon, cowboys say the cook is a prince. Without it, they invent new words for him. Later in this video, you'll hear the simple way he made that pork vanish on paper while it sizzled in pans. Mid-morning, the chuck wagon rattles ahead. The trail boss likes to wagon an hour up the route to stake a noon camp by water, maybe a muddy creek under a cottonwood, maybe a buffalo wallow with a skin of green. Cookie reads country like scripture, wind, grass, shade, and the way thunderheads stack on the horizon. He knows where ticks run thick, too. Folks in Kansas fear Texas fever, and towns post-quarantine lines. One stray cow slipping into a farmer's pasture can start a fight that ends with a rope. So the herd skirts settlements, and the cook keeps a mind on where rumors blow. Rehook, what happens when a railhead detective asks to count your flour sacks? At noon, he serves son-of-a-gun stew if he's lucky, tripe heart, maybe tongue from a steer cut for meat. If not, it's beans sweetened with sorghum and sharpened with chili. He scrapes the pots with sand, wipes them with clean rags, and saves every drop of bacon grease in a tin. Grease seasons skillets and hides flavor when meat runs lean. You can't waste anything on a trail measured in hoofbeats and miles. Even the coffee grounds get boiled twice and thrown on the fire to tame the smoke. Trouble comes on wheels and hooves. A thunderstorm stomps out west, and lightning turns the sky into a swing door. Wind lifts the tarp. Flour tries to go airborne. Cookie throws his body over the grub box like a hen in a hawk's shadow. Then it hits. The sound of a freight train made of hooves. Stampede. Every man with a horse throws on a bridle and rides. The cook can't ride out. He's the anchor. He drags a wagon to a low spot, chains a wheel, and prays the herd splits around him. When the dust clears, the tally is short by 3 steers and 1 coffee pot. He still serves supper. That's the job. Nights crawl or sing. On quiet ones, coyotes yip and the night guard hums the herd. Get along, little dogies, over and over until the cattle breathe easy. Cookie sets sourdough for the morning and trims a candle. On loud nights, there's poker and a circle of lanterns, and men tell stories about Abilene's dance halls, which sound like churches with worse music and better offerings. The cook listens, smiles, and says little. He's saving his words for the moments they buy peace. More biscuits will stop most arguments cold. Now about that bacon. The trick isn't in the frying. It's in the flour. Cookie keeps 3 50-pound sacks in the wagon side bin. Except the bottom sack isn't floured the way God made it. He sewed a false canvas a hand's width off the bottom and filled that hidden space with wrapped slabs of bacon. On top, flour for biscuits. When a foreman or a trail detective from the railhead wants to check stores, worry about theft, spoilage, or quarantine, Cookie unties the top sack and plunges a hand in. White powder up to the wrist sells honesty. They don't tear open seams, because men in dust country hate waste more than sin. As weeks roll by, he swaps bacon from the fall's bottom into the grease tin, one slice at a time, and the herd rides north none the wiser. Is that stealing? Ask 10 men, and you'll hear 12 answers. The cook figures he's buying calm in calories, and he pays for the bacon with money he won playing 7-Up on payday. The army won't miss it. The boys won't riot. The boss won't need to dock pay over spoiled beef because nobody wants to eat it plain. In a land with no shade and long miles, bacon mercy might be the cleanest crime on record. And if the law asks, he's just a biscuit shooter. The law rarely arrests a man who keeps everyone fed. As the herd nears Abilene, the rules tighten. Towns in Kansas post signs about Texas cattle and fever ticks, and there are washing stations and holding pens. Prices yank like a halter. Buyers want fat weight, clean hides, no bloat. Cookie's jobs shift from heavy meals to careful ones. Enough to keep men steady, not so much they start a spree before their pay is counted. He fries apples if he can get them, bakes beans in a pit with mesquite smoke, and brews coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe. One evening a railhead detective pokes around the wagon and taps the flour sacks with a cane. "Plenty of flour," he says. Cookie nods. Enough for biscuits to make a preacher swear. The man laughs and walks on. The bacon sleeps in his canvas pocket, safe as a coin in a Bible. By the last camp before Abilene, the wagon looks lean. 2 sacks of beans gone, sugar jar thin, coffee down to brown grit. Cookie scrubs his Dutch oven with sand and lays his tools like a soldier. Ladle, knife, skillet, tin cup. He thinks about the Red River light on day 1 and the blue lantern glow of town ahead. Tomorrow they'll trail in, sell the herd, and blow pay at the dance halls and faro tables. He'll buy a new coffee pot. He'll also quietly retire the false bottom sack with a pocket knife and a small fire. Some secrets deserve a proper burial. So, what does a trail cook do when army bacon goes missing? And how does he keep 100 hungry cowboys from finding out? He hides it where men won't look, inside the humility of a flour sack, and he spends it slow, in flavor, in good temper, and in miles made easier. On the Chisholm Trail, that's as close to a clean conscience as an outlaw cook can get. Next time, we're leaving the trail for the Ragged, Missouri-Kansas line, where a former bushwhacker keeps a ledger of banks, safe houses, and the one mistake that draws a Pinkerton's eye. What let the former bushwhacker rob banks along the Missouri-Kansas line without firing a shot, and what tiny note in a ledger finally puts the Pinkertons on his trail? It's 1870, 5 years after the war. The burnt district still smells like old smoke. Our man, folks call him Ledger Jack, once rode with guerrillas who knew every hedgerow between the Osage and the Big Blue River. He keeps the horsehair rope from those days coiled under his bedroll. He also keeps a book. Stick around to discover the single pencil mark that gives him away. Ledger Jack's mornings start quiet. He waters his sorrel mare as spring that feeds the Big Blue. He oils his coat, counts cartridges, and checks his boots for stuck pebbles. He wears plain clothes, homespun shirt, faded gray trousers, slouch hat pulled low. The fewer reasons to stare at him, the better he sleeps. He keeps a folding map in his vest. It shows where the prairies dip, where the creeks braid, and which crossings suck a horse to the belly after rain. He works a circuit of small towns along the border. Independence, Hickman's Mill, Paula, sometimes as far as Garnett or Pleasant Hill. No famous banks, no city vaults. Big names draw big guns. He prefers a farmer's savings and a merchant's payroll, easy to carry and quick to split. He watches for telegraph wires and asks himself one question before any job. How long until news rides faster than me? A bank day looks boring on purpose. He rides in at sunup, ties off neat, and asks about flour or harness soap. He buys a penny nail, tips his hat to the clerk, and finds a livery. There he talks feed. Oats or prairie hay? He notes the answer. Later in this video, you'll see why those oats matter more than the sheriff's badge. At noon, he sits on a bench by the courthouse and eats Johnny cake from a wax paper wrap. He studies shadows. A short shadow means the teller is back from dinner. A long one gives him time. He reads people like weather, a storekeeper with a cash box under the counter, a deputy who drinks in the daytime, a widow who rents a room to men who need no questions. He never rushes. He never bets on luck. The raid happens fast and soft. He enters with a simple request: chain for a 20 or a draft cash for a cattle buyer. While the teller turns, Jack lifts the gate latch from the outside with a whittled wedge. He doesn't point his gun. He holds a hand in his pocket like he might. The teller sees calm eyes and decides to live rich and talk later. Money slides into a grain sack already dusted with flour. It looks like a shopping bag. The safe stays closed. Time stays slow. Outside, Jack walks, not runs, to the alley. He never rides out of town at a gallop. He leads the mare 1 block, mounts at the livery corner, and trots uphill to a rutted lane lined with hedge apple trees. Half a mile out, he leaves the road and follows a cattle path to a shallow ford. Hoof prints vanish in running water. On the far bank, he changes a horse's shoes, yes, out in the brush, with a spare set from his saddlebag. The new shoes have a different nail pattern. When a posse reads the trail later, the tracks change horses. It's a trick he learned in the war and never forgot. He keeps safe houses spaced like fence posts, every 8 to 10 miles. A Quaker widow north of Westport who never looks at his face. A German saddler near the Big Blue who repairs tack in the dark. A creekside cabin where a girl with a crooked smile leaves bread by a stump. He pays in silver, never greenbacks, because silver doesn't carry bank stamps. He marks each place in his book with a small drawing. A leaf for the widow, a horseshoe for the saddler, a sun for the cabin. No names, no dates, just symbols a child could love. But the world is changing. The railroads whistle across the prairie. Telegraph keys chatter like cicadas. Banks hire detectives who don't wear stars, and they don't drink before noon. A Pinkerton man shows up in Powell 2 weeks after one of Jack's quiet days. He watches shoe nails. He listens at the blacksmith's. He asks the livery about feed. Oats, the man says. Who buys oats on a Tuesday from a Missouri man headed back to Kansas? It's a small question, but it sticks. Rehook. Well, the only thing you can't hide is your horse's dinner. Ledger Jack's rules are simple. Never sleep 2 nights in the same bed. Never spend near where you took. Never brag. He breaks none of them. He even writes his notes at dawn, when men are most honest with themselves. The ledger lives between the false bottom of his saddlebag and the cover of a Harper's magazine, which no deputy reads. He uses a carpenter's pencil, dull on purpose, so the lead leaves a fat line that smears if anyone thumbs it. The Pinkerton maps the country the same way Jack does. He rides a Big Blue in a slow curve and talks to widows with dry wells and men who keep spare shoes hanging from rafters. He notes the fords where water runs clear even after rain. He draws his own symbols, a circle for a livery that sells on credit, a cross for a deputy who owes money, a square for a bank with a safe too heavy to tip. One cold morning, Jack rides out of Hickman's mill with a bag of coin that clinks like hail. He takes the creek road, crosses at his favorite place, and heads to the saddler for a fresh strap. The Pinkerton waits with patience only a paid man can afford. He doesn't block the door. He sits on a nail keg and asks for a harness stitch. He watches hands, not faces. When Jack lays his saddlebag down, the detective spots a faint graphite smudge along the seam, the kind you get from a dull pencil rubbed by leather. It's nothing unless you've been chasing nothing for months. The detective follows quiet as dusk to the Quaker widow's farm. He sees the bread on the stump. He sees the leaf carved on the ledge by a restless thumb. Next day in Westport, he buys a cheap magazine at the dry goods store and flips the cover. No ledger, but now he knows where to look. Later in this video, you'll learn the tiny mark that finally breaks the case. And it isn't a footprint. When the grab comes, it's not dramatic. A constable stops Jack on a bridge and asks for his travel papers, a courtesy no one cares about anymore. Jack smiles and opens a saddlebag for show. The constable accidentally bumps it, The false bottom pops a hair's width. The Pinkerton steps from behind the rail, gentle as Sunday, and lifts the Harpers. Under it sits the book. On the first page, next to the child's drawing of the leaf, is one word he never meant to write: OATS. He wrote it to remind himself which livery sold the fresh grain that week. He forgot to erase it. The detective doesn't need a confession. Grain bags and silver tell the rest. So what lets a former bushwhacker rob banks without firing a shot, and what detail brings him down? Silence, planning, and the speed of a horse carry him across the line for months. But a single penciled word, oats, ties a hungry mare to a Tuesday purchase and a trail of soft raids. In a land where men burn records and swear to win, graphite is louder than gunfire. Next up, we head southwest of the San Simon country, where a freight hauler threads rifle crates through Chiricahua passes and learns the cost of moving iron in the shade of the border. How does a quiet freight hauler move illegal rifles through the San Simon country without getting stopped by soldiers, robbed by bandits, or lost in the Chiricahua passes? It's the early 1870s in Arizona territory. The San Simon Valley runs long and dry between blue mountains. The U.Este Mexico line is close enough to smell the mesquite smoke from both sides. Our man, people call him Cal, hauls flour, coffee, salt, and wagon parts by day. At night, he moves crates that never make a ledger. Stick around to learn the one border trick that keeps him out of irons. Cal wakes before dawn. He checks each wheel spoke with mallet, listens for a hollow ring, and tightens the iron tire if the night air shrank it. He greases hubs with tallow, not bacon, because bacon draws coyotes and questions. He counts mules by names, not numbers, just Blue, Fox, and Old Mary, so if one is missing he knows it quick and feels in his bones. Water is the whole game. The San Simon is a thin thread most months. Cal knows every tanaja, rock tanks to hold last week's rain, and each alkali pool that will tear a mule's stomach. He carries canvas water bags under the wagon seat and a small stick of sulfur to sweeten bad water. Later in this video, you'll see how one gourd dipper keeps his crew alive when a spring goes sour. His route runs from Tucson's warehouses to the freight yards near Apache Pass and on toward the Fronteras country in Sonora. The road is more idea than fact. Wind makes dunes across it. Washes cut it into puzzle pieces. Cal reads the land by shade and bird flight. Ravens mean a camp or a carcass. Quail mean brush and maybe a seep. He sets travel by the sun and the mule gait. 3 miles an hour if the load is honest. A crawl when the crates are iron. The guns? Army Spencers at first, then Winchesters, and a few Sharps when money gets loud. Cal never touches the metal. He handles crate stencil machinery or stove bolts. He learned the hard way to wedge each crate with rawhide, so it won't knock when the wagon hits ledge rock. A knocking crate at a checkpoint is a sermon with no end. Rehook. What do you say when a customs officer taps the box and asks you to open it? Border life means many flags and more rules. On Tuesday, a Mexican customs man checks for import fees. On Wednesday, a U.S. sergeant wants to see bills of lading. On Thursday, a rancher with more cousins and cattle wants a road tax. Cal pays small and often. He carries coins in 3 pouches. One is silver for honest holes. One is dull coin for men who prefer darkness. The third he calls spare luck, used only when a situation turns tight and needs to loosen. He travels with a vaquero named Mateo. Mateo knows the Sonora canyons like a pastor knows pews. He can rope a mule's hind foot at a trot and can taste a trail to tell if water sits ahead in the shade. At night, Mateo rolls a cigarette and listens to the wind in the catclaw. Cal listens too. Sound moves strange in those valleys. Sometimes you hear a wagon 2 miles away, and sometimes you don't hear 30 riders until their horses snort behind you. The Chiricahua country is not empty. Scouts move like shadows. Dust puffs where it shouldn't. Cal respects the mountains. He never camps in the same wash twice, and he keeps fires small and low. He doesn't talk brave. He leaves a coffee can of beans and a square of tobacco on a flat rock at certain passes. It's not payment. It's manners, the kind that keep your life. When he must cross near a post road, Cal sets a mask for the law. He slides 2 honest crates to the tailboard and writes clean bills for them. He sets the rifle crates forward, under sacks of salt and a barrel of nails. Salt keeps dogs sneezing. Nails clink against wood and sing like any hardware load. If a deputy climbs up, he sees what he expects: the common cargo of a poor man trying to stay fed. But the weak link in any secret is a man with a pencil. Cal keeps no papers. He remembers weights by taste. 200 pounds feels like dry corn. 300 feels like molasses. When a buyer demands a receipt, usually a mine accountant who likes stacks of numbers, Cal hands him a tag that reads bolts, hinges, pipe. The buyer nods, stamps it, and files his own sin. One dry noon. Trouble rolls in like heat. A patrol steps out near San Simon, Cienega. The sergeant wears new boots, which means he wants to prove something. He taps a crate with a saber and smiles. "Open it," he says. Cal smiles back and shrugs. "Sir, it's stove bolts for the mission. If I break the lashings, I'll miss the water at Doubtful Spring." He lets the word doubtful hang there like a vulture. Nobody likes sleeping dry. The sergeant still wants a show. Cal opens the tail crate. Bolts and hinges spill in a tin rattle. The sergeant nods, bored. He has a long day and a short canteen. He waves them on. Later in this video, you'll hear why Cal always put a rusty hinge on top, even when the box is honest. Little lies make big doors open. Bandits are worse than soldiers. They want everything, and the mules, too. Cal avoids them with timing, not guns. He leaves a day before the moon goes full and pushes to make the hard pass at night, when men with bad hearts sleep, and only owls work. If dust shows behind him after midnight, he drops a kedge, a small tool bag forgotten on the trail. Most thieves stop to search it, and that buys 10 minutes, which buys a mile, which buys safety. Once, down near the borderline, scratched into the sand, Cal runs into a Sonoran commandante who recognizes the wagon. "Machinery again?" the officer says. Cal nods and offers coffee. The officer sips, grimaces, and laughs. "You brew like a mule drinks." Cal grins. "Mules don't complain, sir. That's why I trust them. Humor greases places grease won't." Here's the border trick. Cal works a shallow gully that crosses the line at an angle. He plants a dead mesquite branch as a marker on a side and lines up a real mesquite on the other. He drives down the gully, stops where both trees match his sight, and shifts the rifle crates into a second wagon box hidden under brush. Then he pulls forward, lighter, to the checkpoint. After dark, Mateo brings a hidden half across at a cattle drift used since before flags mattered. Cal sells to men who take risks, ranch guards, mine hands, and fighters who keep to the high country. He never knows where the rifles end up, and he doesn't ask. He counts coin, buys oats, new harness, and one more can of axle grease. He tells himself he is a freight man, not a war. He also knows the line between those words can vanish in a dust devil. So how does a quiet hauler move illegal rifles through the San Simon and live to haul again? He respects water, reads land, pays small bribes, hides iron under the noise of nails and salt, and splits the load at a crooked gully, so he is never caught heavy. In a world of hard light and long miles, he survives by patience, not gunfire. Next, we'll ride north into the Great Basin, where two-stage robbers learn that wind, distance, and decoy fires can be friends, or the fastest way to a rope. What kind of plan lets two-stage robbers live off the Great Basin's empty miles? And why do a few small fires make rich coaches stop where there's nothing to see? It's 1879 along the Mormon Corridor, that long chain of towns from southern Utah into Nevada. Between the towns stretch basins so wide a man can see tomorrow. Our pair, Gabe and Porter, aren't famous, and that's the point. They rob like ranch hands mend fence. Quiet, patient, and only when the wire sags. Stick around to learn the simple fire trick that turns desert wind into a partner. Their workday starts the night before. In the basin country, water rules men. Gabe carries a grease-stained map with blue pencil dots for springs. Mountain Meadow, Beaver Dam, Ash, and a nameless seat kept by petroglyphs carved into red rock. He marks which ones are brackish and which run sweet. Porter rides ahead and tests each water with a tin cup. If coyotes drink there, men can too. Carefully, They cache jerky in stone jars and tuck a few .44 cartridges in hollow ledges. The desert keeps secrets if you treat it like a church. The overland stage runs on a schedule, but not on mercy. Coaches lurch through sand and up basalt grades, driven by men who think sleep is a rumor. Strong boxers ride under the driver's bench or inside, chained to a bolt. Shotgun messengers sit high and look mean. The company hires them for their eyes, not just their guns. Gabe and Porter study those men from far off. Tiny figures against heat shimmer, long enough to learn each driver's habit. One slows at Washburn's cut to spare the team. Another whips hard across a dry lake and never looks left. The robbers never hit near a town. They work the spaces between low passes, dry flats, and lava shelves where tracks blur in gravel. Porter carries a spyglass and watches dust. A high, thin plume means riders at a trot. A low boil means a coach fighting sand. Later in this video, you'll see why sand is their friend and gravel is their enemy. They set a stage the way a patient man sets a coyote trap. In late afternoon, they drag a chain log across the trail for half a mile, just enough to scuff every hoofprint into confusion. Then they carry the log sideways and leave it under juniper. No straight line of marks to follow. Next, they lay out decoys, a broken wool track pressed with hoop of willow, a few scattered oats, and a burlap scrap. It looks like a wreck just out of sight. A driver will slow, wondering if help is needed or if trouble waits. Now the fire trick. The Great Basin has wind that changes its mind every hour. Gabe and Porter learned to read it by smoke from their cook fires. At dusk, when the air cools and the breeze often runs downslope, they build 2 small fires with damp sage and a dash of axle grease. Not bonfires, just smoky, lazy ones. They set them 100 yards apart on the coach's line. No more. Smoke pools low and drifts across the trail like a thin fog. From a distance, it looks like dust and reads like danger. Men who have watched Paiute signal fires or range fires will see those puffs and wonder who is talking to whom. Rehook. What happens when the stage driver believes he's about to roll into someone else's ambush? Gabe picks the talking. He stands by a rock, scarf up, hat low, rifle across his chest but not pointed. Porter hides to the side, 50 yards out, where sage meets stone. The coach grinds near, slows for smoke, then slows more for the wreck marks. The driver curses the wind. The messenger shifts on the bench and tries to look everywhere at once. Gabe raises his hand like a road agent from a dime novel and calls out plain as Sunday, "Hold up for a minute, boys." Wind's blown trouble onto the trail. The messenger's job is to say no. But men make choices with their throats when smoke scratches them, and horses hate strange smells. Gabe doesn't threaten. He starts with water. "You've got a bad, pull ahead. There's a spring behind us. Let's get the team a drink and sort this." He sounds like a neighbor. He offers sense. And the desert backs his story. The wind, the scuff trail, the smoke that can mean anything. If the messenger climbs down, he keeps both hands on the coach. That's when Porter steps from the side, quiet as shade, and takes the reins. No shooting, no yelling. He just says, "We'll ease this box and you'll keep your seats." He tosses a canvas over the messenger's shotgun, turning it into a polite stick. The driver, who loves his team more than company coin, listens to the man handling his horses. They work fast. Porter's knife slides the bolt chain. Gabe takes the strong box in both hands like a man lifting a child. They don't touch passenger bags. They don't want squirrels. Small men with big emotions, remembering faces. They return the reins and point the coach to the spring they named. It's real. Letting men drink after robbery buys peace and time. A coach that stops to water won't chase. A messenger who isn't bleeding won't talk with fury, only with duty. Sometimes things go crooked. Once, near Medina Flat, a new messenger, fresh from California, loud as a jay, jerked his shotgun clear and fired. The blast took Porter's hat and singed his hair. The second barrel clicked. Bad cap. Gabe didn't shoot back. He threw sand, scooped the man's coat over the gun like a cat over a lizard, and said, "Friend, I'm saving your job. Let your boss claim misfire instead of murder." Odd thing about pride. Men like a lion that saves face. The messenger swallowed, spat, and stared straight ahead while they lifted the box. Later in this video, you'll hear why they always left a little silver behind on purpose. After, the pair vanished into geology. They walked the strong box a quarter-mile over broken lava, carrying it between them on a pick handle. Heavy things leave honest tracks. Two men who share weight leave lies. At a pre-marked basalt seam, Porter pries, Gabe slides a box in, and they tap the rock back. The desert, patient as a banker, holds a deposit. They don't open the box that night. Noise carries forever out there. Coyotes will tell on you. They live light. Jerky, cold beans, biscuit crumbs and a hat brim, sips from a canteen wrapped in wet cloth. They sleep with boots on and dreams off. When they ride 2 days to do it. Panguitch Fair, Pioche Mining Camp, maybe Cedar City if they want pie and quiet. They buy flour and .44s, never silk. The Great Basin teaches one math lesson. Showy men run out of water first. Why the small fires? Here's the close. Those smoky puffs are a story the wind tells, and Gabe and Porter make the driver fill in the missing words. He thinks danger sits ahead. He slows. He listens to the man who offers calm and water. 2 little fires, placed when the air runs downslope, turn empty country into a stage where the robbers set the scene. That's how they live off miles that look like nothing and make good coaches stop where there's nothing to see. Next, we'll drop into the San Pedro River country near Charleston, where a drifter learns that water rights can be sharper than any knife, and crossing the wrong pump can put you between the cowboys and the Earps. What does a drifter do when the San Pedro River runs thin? The mills want more water, and the wrong turn of valve can put it between the cowboys and the Earps. It's 1881 near Charleston. 2 miles of dust and noise on the San Pedro. Stamp mills thump day and night to crush tombstone ore. Pumps gas like sick bulls. Water runs in ditches and in ledgers. Our man, folks call him Rafe, owns nothing you can see, but he holds something better for a time, the small power to say where water goes first. Stick around to hear the one trick he uses to win a dry fight without drawing iron. Rafe wakes before the mill whistles. He smells coal smoke and wet rock. He rolls from a blanket under mesquite, checks his boots for scorpions, and walks the riverbank. He watches the current like a gambler reads cards. If the water pushes hard at the bend by the cottonwoods, the pumps get their drink. If it curls lazy, the mills will cough before noon. He taps each headgate with a pole and listens for the knock of sound timber. Later in this video, you'll hear why a hollow knock means more than any deed. Charleston lives on work, or wagons rattle in from Tombstone. Teamsters swear at grades. Merchants sell coffee, bacon, and pipe tobacco to men who burn daylight for pay. The mills, big as barns, eat cordwood and spit steam. They need steady water to run stamps and washers. Men curse the river when it shrinks. They curse each other when it doesn't. Rafe's job is simple on paper. He's a ditch rider for a string of claims just above town. He walks the lateral, clears silt, and sets boards at headgates to split the flow. He writes the hours in a pocketbook. He settles spats before they become fights. He also runs a side game. For a fee, he can make your slew sing sooner than your neighbors. Not by theft, by timing. He opens here a half hour early, closes there a half hour late. In a drought, 30 minutes feels like a miracle. The pump engines change the game. A new steam pump, shiny as a senator's shoe, arrives on a flat car and grinds into place by the river. It can pull more water in a morning than a whole winter of rain used to spare. Rafe watches the flywheel spin and thinks of hungry boys at a church picnic. Rehook. What happens when a machine drinks faster than a river can swallow? He tries to stay small. He avoids tombstone politics. He nods to the Earps in town when he buys nails. He tips his hat to a cowboy or two near the San Pedro when he hears their spurs in the brush. He does not take sides. He takes measurements. But men with power notice men who touch valves. A mine boss in a clean vest asks Rafe to prioritize his ditch. A rancher with dust in his mustache asks for a little more flow to water Remuda. Both slide coins across the table. Both smile like nothing costs anything. Claim jumping is the valley's shadow sport. A man who can't get water will forget to post a notice. Another man will find that gap and put up his own paper by lantern light. Rafe knows the rules. Discover, post, record at the office in Tombstone. But paper is weak without wet dirt. A claim lives, the shovel shines, and the sluice runs. So jumpers time their move for dry weeks and empty ditches. Later in this video, you'll see how Rafe makes a false flood without spilling a drop. One morning, word runs downriver. The cowboys are sour about a mill boss fencing a side channel. They say that channel has watered cattle since before any engine coughed to life. The boss says he bought rights and can prove it with stamps and signatures. Men on both sides wear pistols like belt buckles. Rafe walks his ditch and counts to keep calm. 1, 2, 3 for head gates. He tells himself he works for the river. The river does not listen. By noon, the pump beats like a drum at a funeral. The San Pedro drops inches you can see. Tadpoles park in the warm shallows and wait for a mercy that won't come. Rafe knows the mills will blame him if the stamps stall. He also knows ranch hands will blame him if cattle bawl. He picks a third path. He cuts brush, jams it at a bend above the pump, and throws 2 sacks of gravel against the tangle. The water rises a finger's width and slides down his lateral with a whisper. He opens a gate for a small claim that is paid on time and kept peace. The pump still drinks, but the little man gets a sip. It's a poor man's miracle. Night brings cards and talk. Men crowd a table under a lantern in a Charleston back room. Some wear bowler hats from town. Some wear sweat and grit. They talk law like it's a horse they can rope. First in time, first in right, says a clerk who loves Latin words. First with fists, first at night, says a teamster who loves truth. Rafe keeps his thoughts quiet. He plays 7-Up and watches. He sees who smiles at the pump and who spits at it. He learns more in an hour of cards than in a week of reports. Trouble walks in boots the next day. A cowboy with a red sash and smile that never reaches his eyes leans on Rafe's gate and says, "You're clever with boards. Be clever for me." Rafe nods slow. Boards move for money and for quiet. The cowboy flips a half eagle and says, "Buy yourself both." Rafe pockets the coin he did not ask for and hears the reel of a line hook a fish. Rehook. What do you do when both banks of the river pay you to be loyal? Here's the trick. Rafe drafts a rotation, neat as a schoolmaster's chalk. Every claim gets the same hours in print, pinned at the mill, the store, and the livery. Then he adds a line. Emergency surge at sundown for bank repair. All hands agree. No one wants to argue with repair. Each evening he runs a short surge down different laterals in turn. 10 minutes of full gait, counted by his pulse. The men who need water most feel seen. The men who want it all never see more than a blip. The pump keeps pumping. The river keeps limping. But the fight's cool. Paper, posted in 3 places, becomes a fence. It doesn't last. A deputy from Tombstone, mustache neat, star bright, rides in with a note from the office. The court wants exactment of rights. The Earps are trying to calm the county before Lee does it worse. The deputy asks Rafe for his book. Rafe hands it over. The pages smell of wet wood and sweat. The numbers are true enough. The deputy nods once. "Keep it steady," he says, and leaves dust hanging like a curtain. At dusk, the cowboys test the fence. They ride to the mill channel and pull 2 boards. Water jumps, men shout, and a worker reaches for a wrench like it a rifle. Rafe steps between them with both hands high. "Put the boards back," he says to the cowboys. You don't want the deputy to ride out again, not with the town watching. He turns to the millmen. "Let that side claim take the sundown surge. You'll get the next 2. That's an ink." He waits. The pump thrums. The river slides. Pride argues with thirst. Pride loses. So what does a drifter do when the river runs thin and big names pressin'? He writes a fair schedule, posted where all can see, makes tiny surges at sundown keep tempers low, and stands in dust when boards start to move. He wins a dry fight without drawing iron by turning water into time and time into peace. Next, we ride out onto the Llano Estacado, where a buffalo skinner learns that selling prime robes off ledger can pay, until flat country leaves nowhere to hide. What makes a buffalo skinner risk everything to sell the best robes off the books? And how does it keep a whole outfit from noticing prime hides slipping away on the Llano Estacado? It's 1874 on the high, flat steppe they call the Stake Plains. Wind runs level for days. Grass whispers, and the sky looks big enough to brand. Our man, Hob, works knives and fleshing beams for a buffalo outfit pushing north from the double mountain fork of the Brazos toward the Canadian River. He's paid by the hide. He's also tempted by a side deal that pays in hard coin. Stick around to learn the quiet trick he uses to move top-grade robes without getting strung up by his own crew. A skinner's day starts before the cook bangs a pan. Hob checks his knives with a whetstone until they sing. He smears tallow on his hands to keep the alkali dust from cracking his skin. He walks the line of carcasses dropped by the hunters at last light. Big cows for robe leather, bulls for tougher hide. He smells iron and grass. Wolves already circle. Later in this video, you'll hear why Hob always leaves one carcass untouched to the edge of the field. The work is mean but quick when you know it. Cut at the brisket, roll the hide, open along the legs, peel with the knife's weight in your knees. The beam waits back at camp, a rounded log set chest high. Hob throws each hide over it and scrapes flesh with a two-hand blade. He salts the flesh side, staggers a stack with spacers so it dries, and counts to the tally man. Prime winter robe, thick, heavy, lots of hair, means more pay later in Dodge or Fort Griffin. Summer hide is near worthless. Timing is money on the plain same as in town. The outfit runs like a small army. 2 or 3 hunters with Sharps rifles drop the herd. A Skinner crew follows. A wagon boss frets about weather and wolves, and a guard keeps watch for trouble from Comancheria trails or from other outfits with light fingers. The Llano gives no cover. You can see a rider's hat an hour away. You can also get caught in a blue norther that turns your bones to glass. Hob keeps a buffalo robe for sleeping and a bad hat for shade. He doesn't keep much else. So why steal from your own crew? Hob figures he isn't stealing, he's adjusting. The boss shaved the weight on pay last run, claiming salt costs ate the profit. Hob knows what he scraped and how much hair lay in the sledges. A buyer from a trading post on Canadian whisper of extra coin if prime robes came in clean. No company mark, no grease, and no questions. That kind of money pays for new boots, maybe a stake in a small spread someday. Rehook. How do you move a heavy robe across open country when every eye can count what's on the wagon? Here's Hob's plan. The outfit brands each dried stack with a simple stamp. 2 letters burned into the flesh side. The tally man chalks numbers on a board. Hob never touches the stamps. Instead, he works the edges. When a blue norther threatens, the boss orders a fast move. Throw the best in the top wagon and roll. In the rush, Hob slides 2 prime robes under a layer of scrap hide and broken beamwood, then lashes a load. At camp, he loses those 2 into a separate lean-to for rescrape, claiming they need more fleshing before salting. Nobody questions a man asking for more work. Later in this video, you'll see why his lean-to has a second door you can't see from camp. Water rules everything out here. The Llano Estacado hides its water in shallow draws and seeps. Buffalo hunters know the playas and the gullies that hold a puddle after rain. Hob learned a trick from a Mexican teamster. Line a pit with hide, hair side down, and you can hold water long enough to slake a remuda. Hob keeps one such pit a half-mile from camp behind a low rise. He uses it as a meeting spot with the buyer's runner, a Kiowa-speaking man with a scar on his cheek, who trades without smiles or threats. Coin clinks, robes change hands, and both men leave no tracks on hardpan when the wind is up. Of course, nothing stays easy. After adobe walls earlier that year, the plains feel touchy. Scouts ride the wind. Some nights coyotes sing, and some nights you hear nothing at all, which is worse. The wagon boss counts stacks twice a day. He knows prime robe numbers like a preacher knows psalms. Hob keeps his shuffle small. 2 hides a week, never 3, and never on the same day. He jokes with the cook. Pattern gets a man hanged faster than lead. One cold dawn, the hunters drop a fine cow herd, and the ground steams like a washhouse. The skinners move quick to beat the sun. Hob slices, peels, and drags. A bull baits the wolves away, per plan. He always leaves at one, the wolf carcass, so the pack has meat enough to forget about camp. It's not kindness. It's insurance. Wolves busy with ribs don't chew your drying stacks. That's the reason he leave a carcass at the edge, so your profit doesn't run off on four legs. By noon, the wind swings north. Dust runs like water. The boss yells for a fast set and a tighter wagon. Hob sees his chance and slides 2 robes into the lean-to under a tarp that smells of salt and sweat. He scrapes loud on lesser hides, the sound that says honest work, while his mind counts beats to sundown. Stick around. Later in this video, I'll tell you the one sentence he uses to stop a surprise inspection. Trouble walks in from the east, a pair of riders from another outfit, looking for lost stock, or so they say. Their eyes stick to the stacks. One laughs and says, "Fine winter robe. Your boss must pay like a banker." Hob smiles. Boss pays in beans and wind. The wagon boss sizes the men and grips his tally board like a club. Words clink like spurs. It could turn bad fast. Hob steps in with a joke about the cook's coffee, so strong it walks to you, and the men laugh enough to turn their horses. Humor saves more fights on the plains than bullets do. Coin changes hands. Half eagles, warm from pocket. He hides them in a greased tin under axle lumps. Nobody ever digs in grease unless it will squeals. Rehook. What if the tally man decides tonight is the night to count by lantern? And he does. The boss calls for a count. Storm's coming. I want our numbers straight. Men stack hides in tens. The lantern throws long shadows like stakes across the ground. The tally man frowns at the chalkboard and points. We're short 2 prime. Hob lets his shoulders slump like any tired hand. Then he says a sentence that buys his skin. They're in re-scrape. Hair side edge was thick, see? He lifts a lesser hide, shows a messy edge on purpose, and adds, I'll make 'em right by sunup. Nobody argues with a man asking to fix your profit. So what makes a skinner risk it? And how does he hide prime robes under every nose? He steals in inches, under his scraps, through a second lean-to door, with wolves fed and the boss made busy. He salts honesty in public and sells secrets in private, counting on wind and work to cover the gap. On the Llano, with sky like an ocean and nowhere to crouch, his only cover is good timing and dull talk. The loop closes here. Hob turns risk into coin by moving prime hides a few at a time, masking the shortage with re-scrape and storm confusion. That's how a man can adjust the books and not get swung from a wagon tongue. Next, we climb into Sierra Nevada, where a laborer working the railroad snow sheds by day learns to strip bullion from slow freights by night, dodging avalanches, company spies, and the kind of hate that rides with a badge. What lets a quiet laborer working inside Sierra Nevada snow shed slip silver from slow freights at night? And how does he do it without getting crushed by avalanches, caught by company spies, or blamed by angry men with badges? It's 1870 in the high country. Winter turns tracks into tunnels. Long wooden snow sheds hug the Central Pacific line like ribs around a spine. Our man, called Gene by his crew, swings a hammer by day, patching timbers, clearing drifts, and tamping ballast. By night, he moves like smoke. Stick around to learn the small tool he hides in plain sight that unlocks a fortune 1 pinch at a time. The sheds are a different world. Even at noon, they feel like dusk. Lantern light smears across wet boards. Soot sticks to your teeth. Gene knows every creak. When wind stacks powder on the roof, the sheds complain like an old wagon. He can tell rottenwood by the way it drinks sound. He can smell fresh rockfall before he sees it. Later in this video, you'll hear why he always keeps one hand on the wall when trains pass. Work is steady and hard. Crews haul timber, spike rails, and shovel snow where the sheds end. They eat rice, salt pork, dried fish, beans when they can get them, and coffee that tastes like smoke. Pay comes late and light. Some foremen push, some spit, a few shake hands. Gene doesn't argue. He counts. He counts blows on a spike. He counts steps between mileposts. He counts guard rounds at night until the pattern makes sense. Freights crawl in winter. Ice on the grade near Donner Summit turns wheels into violins. Conductors hate stopping in sheds because smoke chokes crews and steam drips off the roof like cold soup. but slow trains are easy to touch. And some carry bullion, silver bars and coin locked in express safes, heading west from the Comstock or east toward the Mint. Rehook. How do you reach a safe you can't see and a lock you can't pick? Gene never aims for the safe. He aims for the bags. Mine ship coin in small bars packed in canvas sacks, each tagged and tallied. Sacks ride in wooden crates, and crates ride in the express car near a stove and a sleepy guard. Gene learned from a carpenter that slats split easy where the grain runs thin. He also learned from a blacksmith that iron speaks before it bends. Here's his tool, a short hardwood wedge with a wire loop sunk in the top. Looks like a shim for cribbing timbers. It rides in his belt with a handful of spikes. During the day, he uses wedges to level rail ties. Nobody stares at a man with wood and wire on a railroad. At night, that same wedge becomes a finger long enough to touch money without opening a door. Timing is the spine of the plan. Gene maps the night by sound. The Carson freight whistles twice at Cisco, once at a rock cut, then groans into shed 47. Guards walk a lazy pattern. Stove, door, window, repeat. Lanterns swing. The conductor checks brakes near the third truss and curses in a rhythm. When the wheels slow to crawl under the longest roof, Gene moves. Later in this video, you'll see why he always chooses the upgrade side of a curve. He works from outside the car. Between the rails and the shed wall is a shadow lane about 2 feet wide, damp and full of splinters. Gene wedges himself there, back to wet boards, knees to iron. As the express car creaks past, he slips the hardwood wedge through a gap in the slats near the car's low corner, places where road grit has chewed with soft. He hooks the wire loop on the burlap neck of a sack inside and leans his weight. The wedge doesn't yank. It coaxes, a sack shifts, a knot kisses a gap. He tugs once. The bag's throat slips clear like a fish. He never steals whole sacks. That's how you get hunted. He carries a jackknife home like a whisper and cuts only a thumb-length slit. He fills 2 small tobacco tins with coin and dust, always less than a pound each, then twists the sack and shoves it back with the wedge. The whole hides under its own weight. When the train jolts, coins settle, and the canvas lays flat. A sleepy guard sees bags, counts tags, and thinks the world is as he left it. The danger isn't the guard. It's the mountain. Snow shifts. Sheds sag. Sometimes a drift slides off the roof and hits the ground like a fist. That shock can kick a man into the rail. That's why Gene keeps one hand on the shed post while he works. The post talks through his bones. If it shivers the wrong way, he lets the bag go and melts into a bolt recess until the rumble passes. He also chooses the upgrade side of curves because cars lean away from him there. On the downgrade side, a lurch could kiss him to death. Company men aren't dumb. After rumors of light coin counts, a detective rides a line. He interviews foremen, checks locks, and watches crews with eyes that never blink. He sits by the express stove and taps crates with a screwdriver. He finds nothing because Gene leaves nothing to find. But men talk, and talk turns mean. Some blame rail rats. Some blame foreign hands. Gene says nothing and fixes a bent tie plate until the detective looks past him like a fence post. One night the pattern shifts. A relief guard drinks coffee strong enough to stand, and he walks sharper. He opens a side door of the express car in the shed for air, something they rarely do. Lantern light spills out and paints Gene's lane. Gene freezes, wedge in hand, coin dust on his fingers. The guard sneezes, curses the smoke, and climbs back to the stove. Gene waits 2 breaths, 3, then 4, long enough that his legs burn, and eases the wedge away. Not tonight, he tells himself. He lives by the jobs he doesn't take. So how does he cash the tins? He trades small and far. A laundry in Dutch Flat swaps him groceries for silver dust measured by the spoon, no questions. A boarding house keeper near Emigrant Gap buys coin with nicks on the rim. Coin that fell from a miner's pouch. Gene never spends on show. He buys a better coat, an extra pair of wool socks, and sends money south through a merchant who writes clean ledgers. Why does the plan hold? Because he steals the space between numbers. The car's locks are sure. The tags count. The crates stack right. But weight can lie a little if everyone's cold and the grade is steep. A pound gone from 100 pounds of coin rides like a sigh. A wedge that looks like a tool opens a path no lock can see. And a man who listens to wood, snow, and wheels can time a theft to the heartbeat of a mountain. Close the loop. The small tool hidden in plain sight is that wire-top hardwood wedge. With it, Gene plucks coin from moving freight inside the snow sheds. Never whole bags, never loud, always with one hand on a post, so the avalanche of the world doesn't sweep him under. That is how a quiet laborer takes his share and keeps breathing in a place where even the train has to fight to move. Next, we head to New Mexico territory, where a wet plate photographer in the Lincoln County War learns that the fastest way to change a man's fate is to change his picture, and a darkroom wagon can make alibis as easy as turning glass to light. What makes a traveling photographer in the Lincoln County War change a man's fate with a single picture, and how can a wagon full of glass and chemicals become the quietest weapon in New Mexico territory? It's 1878. The air in Lincoln smells like dust with smoke and trouble. Stores pick sides. Deputies pick sides. Even the wind seems to blow for one camp or the other. Our man, people call him Cole, runs a darkroom wagon between Lincoln, Fort Stanton, and the Capitan foothills. He takes portraits for pay. He also takes pictures that tell stories the way certain men want them told. Stick around to learn the simple trick he uses with time and light that turns a lie into something that looks true. Cole's day starts with water and fire. Wet plate work needs both. He fills a bucket at the Rio Bonito, sets a small stove inside the wagon, and lays out his tools. Glass plates, a bottle of sticky collodion, a silver bath, and a tray of fixer that smells like a bad promise. He checks the wagon's black curtains for pinholes. One tiny star of light can ruin a plate. Later in this video, you'll hear why he always tests his darkroom by closing his eyes and listening before he starts. Portraits are the bread and butter. Town folks sit stiff in a chair, chin up on a fork stick, while he counts slow, 1, 2, 3. He pulls a lens cap, sunlight pours in, and their faces burn into the plate. A good picture is sharp, proud, and kind on the eyes. He sells them for $1. Babies scream. Old men blink. Cowhands try not to grin. Cole keeps it calm. Don't fight it, he says. Let the light do the work. But this year, the light has work of its own. The Lincoln County War rattles wagons and breaks glass. Two rival stores fight over beef, bonds, and banks. Posse men ride with papers one day, with bandanas the next. Every shot fired makes a rumor, and every rumor needs a picture. That's where Cole comes in. He doesn't pick sides. He sells to both. And he learns fast that the right image can sit in a judge's mind like a stone. Here's how wet plates bend truth. The collodion makes the plate sensitive only to blue light. Reds turn dark. Skies blaze white. Freckles fade. A sunburned face looks pale as milk. If Cole photographs a rider at noon, the man's eyes vanish on the brim and his cheeks look gray. If Cole moves him under the porch and opens the lens longer, the eyes pop, the jaw softens, and the man looks gentle. Same man, same day, very different story. Rehook. What happens when a wanted poster uses the wrong kind of light? Cole's wagon is a closet on wheels. He pours collodion over a plate, dips in silver, slides it into a holder while it's still wet, and hustles to the camera before it dries. That's the rule. Coat, sensitize, shoot, and develop in minutes. It makes alibis possible. A ranch hand swears he was in Lincoln at sundown, not out near Blazer's Mill. Cole can take his portrait in front of the Montano store sign and write June 15th, 5 p.m. on the backing. Later in this video, you'll learn the time trick that makes that note look ironclad even when it isn't. Fort Stanton adds pressure. Officers want group shots to send back east. Neat uniforms, clean hats, orderly ranks. Cole lines them up at the mountains behind, waits for a cloud to soften the glare, and snaps the plate. An officer pulls him aside later. If a certain civilian friend appears in any picture, he says, "My colonel will ask questions." Crop him out. Cole nods. He can tilt the lens, shift the frame, or simply stand a barrel where a man used to be. The final view makes the army look like a sealed jar. One hot afternoon, two hard men walk in. One wears a new vest. The other wears his gun like a handshake you can't refuse. They want a respectable portrait. Church window behind us. The vest says, pointing to the adobe church. Cole knows why. A man looks less like a rustler if a cross peeks over his shoulder. He agrees, but he moves them 6 feet to the left under a cottonwood. Leaves break the light. The cross turns faint. Their eyes soften. They look like storekeepers on Sunday. They leave smiling. He feels tired. Now the time trick. Cole keeps 3 chalkboards in his wagon. One with the right date and hour, one set a day earlier, and one scratch blank. When a man pays extra for an alibi, Cole props the earlier board in the background, tiny, blurred, but readable if you squint. Then he writes the time on the back of the print in his cleanest hand. In a town where few men own watches, the chalkboard whispers, "See? It's right there." He never lies with words. He lets the picture murmur for him. Not everyone buys the murmur. A deputy with dust in his mustache starts asking why certain men always look rested in Cole's plates on days that should have been rough. He peers into the wagon, sniffs the fixer, and makes a face. "Smells like you're curing fish," he says. Cole smiles. "I cure memories." The deputy doesn't laugh. He follows the wagon out of town, slow and steady. Rehook. What do you do when the law watches your shadows instead of your hands? Cole's answer is simple. Make the law a customer. He offers a free plate to the deputy. Pose in front of the jail, badge bright, revolver holstered. He uses a wide stop so the background goes soft, and the deputy looks sharp and brave. When the print dries, the man can't stop staring. Now, when Cole stops his wagon by the river, the deputy tips his hat and rides on. Pride buys more peace than money sometimes. The darkroom itself can cover tracks. When Cole needs to be in 2 places at once, he uses a double exposure. First, he photographs a friend standing by the Montano store at dusk. Then, an hour later, he sets the same plate again and opens the lens on an empty doorway in the back alley near the saloon. The 2 scenes kiss on the glass. The friend seemed to stand in front of the store and the alley at the same time, smudged but there. If anyone asked what a man was, there's a ghost of proof. It's not perfect, but men believe what they can hold. Of course, this game cuts both ways. One night, a store owner throws money on Cole's bench and orders him to photograph bullet holes before anyone can patch the walls. I need the jury to see what they did. Cole does it. He angles the lens to make the holes look tight and low, like careful shots, not wild ones. He adds a ruler to the corner of the frame, so the picture says measure without using the word. Later, another man brings a torn coat and asks for a portrait that shows the rip near his ribs. Cole places the rip where the plate sees it darkest. The man looks like he almost died. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. The plate doesn't care. So what makes a photographer change fate with a single picture? And how does a wagon become a weapon? Light lies in honest ways. Blue steals red. Shade gives mercy. A chalkboard at the edge of the frame tells a time no clock can swear to. Cole uses those honest lies, shifts in light, soft backgrounds, careful framing, to make men look guilty or gentle, present or away, as needed. He doesn't forge papers. He pours plates. And in a war where talk moves faster than horses, the image becomes a fact.